Good morning. I'm Misbah Shahjahan, and today we are going to look into the topic the Gulf divided, and mainly the crisis of Qatar or the impact on Qatar. So, by early 2019, the rupture within the GCC, that is Gulf Cooperation Council, was stemming from the boycott of Qatar by four Arab states, appeared to be well entrenched as a new feature of Middle East politics. So this was very known. So the crisis was erupted in 2017 of June, and when Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt joined, severed diplomatic trade and the transport links within Qatar drew their nationals and pulled out their investments. So the four Arab states were Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt. Now, Qatar has been able to withstand all this pressure of the boycott from the four Arab states because it was of its extensive economic resources and its political alliances with other Gulf region. So it was not just with these four Arab states; they were also very well in touch with other Arab states, Gulf states. So, as the world's top exporter of liquefied natural gas, that is LNG, it has benefited from moves by many Western and Asian countries to switch their energy resources from oil to this LNG. So it has used this gas contracts and sovereign wealth investments to invest to consolidate relationship with many countries around the world. So and its main airbase is USA. Now, Qatar did withstand all this. It's because of its extensive economic resources and its political alliances that is beyond the Gulf region. Now, how did this all start? Now, this started with May 23rd by a fake news that Qatar woke up to the news of a hack attributing false statement to the Emir of Qatar. Now, the fake news was aired all over the network, and it was aired on several UAE and Saudi-owned networks in the Gulf, sparking a diplomatic breakdown. So it was because of this fake news the diplomatic breakdown sparked. Now, the incident came just 2 days after President Donald Trump met Gulf Arab leaders in Riyadh. So on May 24th, the very next day, the authorities in Saudi Arabia and the UAE also blocked Al Jazeera website. This was the website of Qatar. Now, the political relationship and the breakdown of diplomatic relations started from here. So on June 5th, early in the morning, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt issued statement announcing the severe diplomatic relations with Qatar. So on June 5th, they declared that they are taking down their diplomatic relationships with Qatar. And on June 7th, and then Saudi Arabia shut down its land borders to Qatar, and along with that, UAE, Egypt, and Bahrain imposed a land, sea, and air embargo on Qatar. So they imposed land, sea, and air restrictions on Qatar too. And on June 7th, Jordan also announced that it would scale back its diplomatic ties with Qatar and shut down Al Jazeera bureau in Oman. Now, why why did the country take this, and what was the Qatar's response to this? So the four countries have claimed that Qatar works to support terrorism, maintains cordial relations with Iran, and meddles in the internal affairs of their countries. So this was the main reason why they imposed these kind of restrictions on Qatar and why they cut ties with Qatar. Now, what was Qatar's response to this? So, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar responded to the initial announcement by saying that there were no legitimate justification for the actions taken by the four countries to sever diplomatic relations. But then it also added that the decision was a violation of its sovereignty and that it would work to ensure that it would not affect the citizens and the residents of Qatar. But then throughout, Qatar had strongly rejected all these accusations leveled against it. But then viewing the campaign as an attempt to impose custodianship over the tiny nation. That was the main reason for this. But both the Emir of Qatar and the country's foreign minister have reiterated that Qatar is willing to negotiate with the boycotting countries and have welcome calls from the international leaders for the parties to sit down around the table. So they were ready to welcome the international leaders and talk about it and negotiate about what the decisions they have taken. Now, the countries who imposed a blockade on the state of Qatar interfere the international affairs of many countries and accuse all those who oppose them domestically and abroad with terrorism. But by doing so, they were inflicting damage on the war of terror. This was said by Qatar Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and he said on a speech to the UN General Assembly in September. And he said that we have refused to yield the dictations by pressure and siege. Now, what was the impact of other countries cutting ties with Qatar? So the severing of ties as a diplomatic concept usually entails a recall of diplomatic representatives and the closing of diplomatic missions by the country that is taking a step. So the country initiating the move can also take the diplomatic representatives of the other country to leave their own country. Now this is usually utilized by the government at the times of only serious complications in relation between states. So this can be only be done when there is a serious complication in the relation between two states. So this has been taken in this scenario. So, in this case of the current Gulf crisis, several other dimensions have been added. So, let's say, so here, Bahrain and Egypt both have Qatari embassies, gave Qatari embassies just 48 hours to implement their respective departure orders while recalling their own diplomats and charged affairs. And then UAE and Saudi Arabia gave Qatari citizens who were residents in the residents in or visiting UAE 2 weeks to depart and order the citizens in Qatar to return. And then Saudi Arabia went more further, withdrawing Qatari troops from the Saudi-led war in Yemen. And Saudi and UAE, Bahrain and Egypt have also closed land, air and sea passage to all vessels, vehicles coming from and going from Qatar. So, because of this, the blockade has disrupted. It is so understand that it has disrupted business, education, and transport links amongst the Qatar and its neighbors, while also tearing apart families whose members have held different passports. So, by mid-September, Qatar's National Human Rights Committee received 3,346 complaints, out of 620 of which were from families affected by these measures. Now, looking into the rest, so most observers assume the most likely scenario is that the dispute between the Qatar and its Gulf neighbors will settle into a holding pattern of several years. But most outside parties try to maintain relation with both sides. Now, it is from the whole case we can understand that neither side seems willing to compromise, but then neither is hurting enough to break the stalemate. So each appears convinced it is right and that it is limited international pressure to negotiate a solution. So, paradoxically, the two countries in the region that appear to have the greatest chance of political stability, that is Qatar and UAE, will be actively undermining each other to considerate detriment of GCC's long-standing reputation and for business-focused political stability. So that being said, the dynamics could change still very quickly, but then the politics that are driving the current standoff are so highly personalized among a handful of senior leaders whose calculation could change in the whole face of any shocks or surprises affecting the religious politics. and the other chance of them working together would be the external shock. So external shock could force the GCC countries to work together again. And this was seen because in 2014, the tension between the Qatar and some of its neighbors were reduced partially. It was because they saw a common threat in the rise of ISIS. Subsequently, in 2015 also, they saw a common interest in working together to intervene in Yemen. So, this being said, there are chances that they might negotiate and work together again, but then equally they might not work together again. So, this is the end of my topic. Thank you so much.